Well, happy Eastertide, Bishop Matt. How are you doing today?
And to you, Don, I'm doing well. And how are you?
We're doing all right here. I'm watching the grass get greener today after a big night of rain last night. So,
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to mow on my day off on Friday.
yes. So, we're here to talk about one of the most unique features of the proposed Constitution and canons for reunified diocese of Wisconsin, and that is this concept of mission action teams. So, I'm curious how this idea of mission action teams came about, and um, what are they exactly going to be?
The initial impetus for mission action teams was when we were putting together the proposal that we presented last summer for a potential diocese of Wisconsin. One of the things we looked at was what kind of staff would be necessary for a diocese this size. And we, knocked around several ideas. And at one point, we had uh, more staff than we are now proposing. And we decided for a bunch of reasons. One is just it's expensive to have multiple staff positions, and we were trying to not make the diocese budget too big. Some staff positions, for example, were a canon for formation or a canon for evangelism. And as we thought about it, we decided to go with a fairly small staff, kind of minimal staff for what we think needs to just be done to make the diocese work. But we still want to focus our attention on things like evangelism and discipleship and faith formation and some other things that we think will help the diocese focus on real growth, spiritual growth for its members, but also we do want to reverse the trajectory that we've been on for the last few decades. So we still want to focus on those things, but rather than have full-time staff, it seems there are people within the diocese already, the diocese, but potentially the diocese, who have expertise or experience or at least passion for those things. So we decided to try this mission action team idea and invite anybody and everybody from across the diocese who has an interest or a passion for any of those things to join in a mission action team. A secondary idea about this is rather than have everything just be strictly top down from the diocesan center out, or however you want to think of that, it's a way of engaging the whole diocese rather than just have everything concentrated at the center.
All right. So, just for points of clarification, is there any relationship between what these mission action teams might be and this reunified diocese and kind of current activities?
The mission action teams, the idea is to have some way of really concentrating our focus on growing the church and engaging the rest of the world with the good news that we believe we have. So that's the mission action teams per se. But we do have in the existing diocese commissions that are trying to address important things that are not unrelated to that, but are kind of not exactly that. So creation care is certainly something as we go deeper into the 21st century, we want to find ways to engage better. And so continuing that creation care commission seems to be a good thing. So we want to carry that over. There's also in the Diocese of Fond du Lac what we've been calling the Mosaic Task Force, but it's essentially a commission on racial reconciliation. Another area that we want to continue to try to do better. It's not unrelated to the other things, but it's a different focus. The three dioceses have companion relationships with dioceses in other parts of the Anglican Communion, or with things like the Haiti Project, those kinds of things. We want to carry those over. So existing endeavors we want to kind of honor and take over into the into the new diocese. So we'll have, at this point, a handful of commissions that are not the same as mission action teams. They'll be made up of people who are interested in those particular areas, maybe not quite as big as mission action teams could become. But we want to find ways to focus on those issues as well. And there could be more commissions as time goes on if we think there's an area that needs some particular attention.
So the canons, as they're proposed right now, have some real specific areas. Why were those ones chosen?
As I said, we thought about having a couple of staff positions. So formation discipleship was one staff position. So that one's kind of, a direct correlation to, instead of having a staff person, we'll have a mission action team that will focus our attention on those things. Similarly, evangelism, instead of having a staff person who's trying to raise that concern, mission action team. Community engagement's kind of related. There is a need, many of us think, to find better ways to encourage congregations to find ways to be about either finding places where there's a need or finding places in their community where something kind of related to the kingdom of God is being done that they might hook up with, partly because we're called to that kind of mission. Stewardship seems maybe a little bit different, but stewardship, if it's more than just fundraising, is about discipleship, is about how we engage spiritually with our stuff, and what wealth we have, what money we have, but also stewardship of our time, stewardship of, again, could kind of cross over into stewardship of creation. But it does seem that that's another area that if we want to grow the church, to focus a bit more attention on would be good.
Each mission action team is going to have a convener or some sort of structure. What do we imagine this will look like?
So the idea would be we identify a convener, and that person would be the one who kind of calls people together. But the idea is not that they become the actual staff person who does all the work. The convener might get a stipend because of some extra work that they're doing. But the hope would be that lots of people join a mission action team. And then that mission action team would meet with some regularity, as regular as they think they need to, but maybe to start with monthly, mostly via Zoom, and brainstorm, kind of talk themselves, maybe do some study themselves on the topic. And then that mission action team would have a website, or a web page on the website where they could put up resources, books to read, study guides, whatever resources there might be on that particular area. That there'd be a budget for the mission action team from which they could invite special guest speakers, experts on any of those areas that might do a webinar for the whole diocese. And then the plan is for the bishop and bishop staff, but to have the focus on each of the 5 regions twice a year. And one of those times we would perhaps have a Saturday or a weekday training session where we would invite everybody from that region to come for a training. And one or two of the mission action teams might be kind of presenting at that training day. The mission action teams will be kind of charged with the responsibility of making sure that the diocese has its attention focused on those areas, but also is resourced so that, and then potentially, if any congregation says, well, we'd love to do something more in reaching out to the community, they could contact the mission action team, and mission action team could work with them to help them kind of up their game.
So we imagine that they would be collecting resources, but they also would be a resource for congregations. Yes. What would you say for folks that have some other areas of like passion in these dioceses to start to, these aren't meant to like be the only thing, but how might somebody with another, ministry passion, get something started up?
It seems to me that the diocese, staff or somebody within the diocese could foster networks of interest. So if you have some folk who are very keen on exploring how churches who in rural settings might do better in being the church in that context, you could have a network of rural churches who do similar work to what the mission action teams do, less formally, and at this point anyway, not fully funded in the same way. But people who have a passion could get together and say, hey, what are you doing in your small setting, your rural setting? What are you doing in yours? Are there people beyond the diocese, maybe even beyond the Episcopal Church, who are doing good work in thinking about how to engage rural ministry? There could be less formal networks that the diocese might kind of help encourage and could potentially highlight through communications. Here's some folk who are doing some good work.
Well, I guess the last thing I'll ask then is, when you put something in a canons and constitutions, it seems like you are literally codifying it. Like, is there room for flexibility here? How might these change over time? I mean, what's the process that
Yeah.
we envision for, flexibility in ministry?
Yeah, that's another great question. Well, as I said, we thought about some others. If it looked like there was enough kind of energy around starting new congregations, new worshiping communities, or whatever, we could potentially add a mission action team. It just would be funding and organizing it. I mean, I guess
Would it
theoretically,
require a constitution or canonical change?
that's a good question. Probably, I guess if it's in the canons. Uh, well, that's a good. That's now you're getting gonna be you have to talk to one of the experts on the canons, but there's I think potentially, given the way we've structured things, the mission action, what we're calling the mission council instead of executive council, could say, here's another area we want to fund, kind of like a mission action team. And then if we want to kind of put it in the canon, we could move in that direction. But I don't think we'd have to wait for the canons to add something. The whole thing, though, is, as you said at the very beginning, somewhat innovative and to be honest, experimental.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible that we'll need to do a major rethink of it after a few years. And what we've tried to do in the design of the Constitution and canons and the policies that go along with those is to build in some flexibility. If it just isn't working, to continue it for the sake of continuing because it's in the canons wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So the canons can be revised by convention, but the policies that the mission council oversees have a lot of flexibility in them. And if it just looks like it's not working, we'd need to say, okay, so that's not working very well. How might we either make it work better, or if we're not going to do that, what do we do instead? Maybe we need to go back and look at the budget and find a way to fund a full-time staff person who's going to engage those things. So uh, everything we're doing is potentially revisable if we follow the process of revising it. What I hope we can do at the Diocese of Wisconsin is find ways, whatever they are, to cultivate and grow the church, to be about what we believe the church is about. Yeah, I want us to find ways to nurture creativity across the diocese, to call us into a deeper relationship with God and a more fulsome engagement with the world around us with the good news that we've got.
All right. Well, thanks for your time today, Bishop.
Thank you, Don. Thanks for doing the interview. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and if I don't see you before, I will see you in the Dells on the 4th of
May
May.
4th.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
All
All
right.
right. Bless
Thanks.
you. God bless.